away from home, again, the winners of the tie tonight, Monday night between Blackburn and Wrexham. What was your reaction when you saw the draw?
Yeah, it was always quite relaxed about these things. The draw's the draw. You know, you get who you get. But I have a close eye on tonight's game to see both teams in action. Be intrigued to see who wins, and it'll be a tough game, whoever we play.
And you're through to the next stage after the win at Fulham on Saturday night. How much of a morale boost do you feel that gave you?
Yeah, it's an important win for us, as I said before the game in the press conference on Friday, how important we were taking the game, how well we'd prepared for it. I think I said after the game it wasn't our best performance, but it was an important win. Defensively, we looked resilient and solid. And hopefully the win gives us a lot of confidence. And I think you could see an improved performance towards the end of the game, probably reflecting the scoreline and the fact that we were winning the game, and suddenly you saw a bit of freedom return.
And 48 hours between matches, it's quite a tight turnaround. How have you spent the time since getting back from London, probably late on Saturday, with the match against Aston tomorrow?
Yeah, a mixture of training, recovery, preparation. A lot of analysis, as always, goes on in between games. So trying to make sure now we're as prepared as we can be for Aston Villa. This is going to be a really, really difficult game. They're in very good form, so we have to get tactically our game plan right.
And it was one of the few places, one of the few matches last season where you were probably well beaten, and they've carried on that great home record into this year. How tough a place would you say Villa Park is to go for any team?
Yeah, we felt in that game we didn't perform to the levels that we had done for majority of the season. It was probably a low point for us. Thought Aston Villa played well on the day. We, for whatever reason, weren't quite there. But I think it highlights for us and the players just how difficult a place it is to go. I think the intensity they played at that day was high. The crowd were very good for them. So I don't expect any of those things to have changed. I think it's up for us to respond. And we've played them twice since then, and I think that, one in a pre-season friendly and one in the first league game of the season. So I don't think there'll be any surprises, but they are a very good team, and Unai's done a great job.
Another away match for you, and in the cups away from home, you've had some good results and some victories. Not quite the case in the Premier League, as you've acknowledged before, and that's been a big frustration. How do you turn around those results away from home in the league?
Well, a similar format to what we did at Fulham, really. I mean, I think the fact that we were solid defensively, we were resolute, we were dogged in midfield, we closed spaces, made it difficult for them to get close to our goal. Our goalkeeper, when called upon, made a very good save. Those are the hallmarks of an away performance, and then you stay in the game, and then you bank on your attacking players to take a moment. And that's what Sean did with a brilliant finish. And then we consolidated that with the second goal. So I think that those qualities, especially the defensive resilience, when you look back at Liverpool in our last away game, we scored twice, should be enough really to get you something from the game. So I think that's what we need to look at.
A bit like Fulham at the weekend, this is a pretty awkward kick-off time for the supporters. Won't be able to get a train home after the match. It's another game that was rescheduled. How much sympathy do you have for them? Because in just a couple of days they've been rather inconvenienced twice.
Yeah, difficult. But both kick-off times strange, and it does think there's a lack of care for the supporters when you consider the loyalty and passion that the Newcastle supporters show. There's going to be a huge number that want to go to the game. So of course we thank them for the support, and we sympathise with the travel arrangements.
And finally, the squad that you'll take to Villa Park, will it have Miguel Almiron and Jamal Lascelles in it, because they weren't with you at the weekend?
We hope Miggy will be with us. Jamal, I'm not so sure about. Again, I said after the game, it's not a serious injury, but I think it might be enough to keep him out of this game. But we'll wait and see. I think it'll be close. But we certainly hope to have Miggy with us.
Eddie, 4 days left of the transfer window. I know you'll be looking forward to it closing. Are the club still active in the transfer market?
Still active. Nothing's changed. It's copy and paste from after the game, before the game against Fulham. And I've got no fresh news to give you. We're still sort of waiting to see what will happen.
It felt a little bit like when you spoke on Friday that either Almiron or Wilson could potentially go just by the way you said, like, some things are out of your control, and there's noise around it, and that noise comes from somewhere. Is that still the case, or can you put a closure on these guys leaving?
You trying to put words into my mouth, Keith? I don't think I said that. We are waiting to see what happens. I don't want to talk about individual player names. I don't think that's right. Yeah, so that's what I say.
If you are to add, do you need to lose someone?
Yeah, I think it's a complex situation, so I don't think anything's clear-cut. All eventualities could happen. Probably what we won't do is bring a player in without losing one the other way. I think that would be impossible. But I think all other options could still happen.
There's a report this morning that the club have made an approach to Aston Villa. I don't know if it's recent or if it's historical, for midfielder Jacob Ramsey. Anything you could tell us on that?
That's incorrect.
Okay. And also Matt Targett, is there a potential that he could potentially go out on loan? Again, another report that Celtic had made an inquiry.
Incorrect. Matt's
well
injured. No, you're way off. Matt's injured, and he's still got some time to go in his injury, and he's also a big part of what we're doing here.
Yeah, so I think we're all desperate for the window to close.
I think you're making things up, to be honest. I wouldn't say as always, Keith, but...
When you look at the game against Villa at the start of the season that you touched on there a moment ago, and everything that went on that day, Sandro and his debut, 5-1, how much would you like to bottle everything that went on that day and take it into this trip to Villa Park?
Yeah, it seems a long time ago, doesn't it? That was a really good result for us. I think we were at our best from an attacking sense that day. I don't think it was, again, a perfect performance. Aston Villa more than played their part in the game. It was a really good game. But I thought we grew in confidence as the game went on. We scored some great goals. The squad looked healthy. We had options. A very difficult team to pick. I remember that because it was a lot of strength in depth. But I think that showed our qualities. And we still have that quality within the squad, so nothing's changed. It's just the fact that obviously we're missing some of those players that performed that day. But yeah, I think that shows what we're capable of.
And although you've still got a number of players out injured, how important was the win against Fulham to extend the season? And are you hoping that gives the players an added sort of spring into their step going into the next month or two?
Yeah, I still feel we've got a lot to play for, regardless. Take the FA Cup aside, the gap between us and the teams above us in the Premier League, immediately above us, isn't big. A run of good form can change things dramatically. So we're not looking at our seasons over in the Premier League or being negative in any way. I think we've still got so much to play for. And then, of course, we still have the FA Cup, which takes a back seat for now, but we'll come on strong again when that game comes around. So I'm very positive. I hope you are.
Thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
Andy? Well, Neddy, Reza mentioned, there's not been too many away wins recently. Does Alan Shearer need to be in more away?
If he could, that would be more than welcome. He seemed to inspire a positive result for us. I'm sure he played a part in what was an incredible atmosphere from the away end, and I wasn't aware that Alan was in there. But the supporters were in good voice, and now it sort of makes a bit more sense that he was there, and maybe that inspired the support, as I say, even more to support the team. I thought the away support, considering the travel difficulties they had, what they gave us on Saturday was immense.
I was listening to Dan Burn afterwards, and he said, Newcastle Slang, quite firing on all cylinders, I think the phrase was he used. What is it going to take for Newcastle to be firing on all cylinders on a more consistent basis, do you think?
Confidence, momentum, rhythm. They're so important. They're very, very key things in our game, especially with the way that we play. If you're playing with any doubt in your game, that will show. So winning games is the only thing that gives you confidence, allied to obviously good training and good preparation. So we're really keen to build on the Fulham game. Go back to the Manchester City game, there's a lot of good in that as well, and if we could have got a positive result there, that would have been 3 unbeaten. So we have to look at these things as steps forward. I think Fulham was.
Great to see Jacob Murphy back on Saturday as well. What about the other longer-term absentees? Harvey Barnes, Joe Willock, Elliot Anderson, how are they all getting on?
Yeah, all individual. Andy's, excuse me. So Harvey is getting closer. He's probably the closest out of the ones that you mentioned, along with Callum Wilson. Then you go a little bit further back to Joe Willock, and then a little bit further again to Elliott. So, and then you've got a couple of others that are even further back. But yeah, so those guys are probably the closest to returning to help us.
Just on the transfer window, what's the best case scenario for you once the window closes?
What's the best scenario? Best case.
Scenario.
I don't know, because, well, I think I said after the game, I think keeping the squad intact as the manager, trying to produce a team that to win games would probably be A1 for me. But as I said so many times, we are guardians of the club's future, and we want to make the right decisions for the club's future. And FFP, we don't want to breach FFP. We want to definitely comply with the rules. So that's where I will support the decisions that are made for the long-term benefit of the club.
I think it was a cup of tea and a biscuit last time. How are you celebrating the end of the transfer window this time around on Wednesday night?
Wait and see. It might be 2 biscuits, might be a bit of cake. Who knows?
Let's get going on Friday. Just on Villa, you mentioned the opening day win, which was a tremendous day at St James Park. In what way have they improved, do you think, since then?
Difficult for me to judge sort of their improvement. I think there was, I say that last season I think we saw a dramatic upturn in their general performances, and I think we were on the end of that at Villa Park when they produced a really good performance and we didn't perform. Then, as I say, we played them pre-season, and then the first day of the season, and we could see that I felt at that time there was 2 really good teams going against each other. They've managed to navigate Europe well. They've managed to stay competitive in the Premier League. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll be pleased with how they've performed to this point. And I think it'll be a really good test for us in this game.
Cheers, thanks, Andy. Alistair? When you look at that 5-1 win and how well that went, do you look at, do you think what could have been in the first half of this season if all those players had stayed fit and been available?
I think that's just wasted energy and wasted emotion for me. I don't think you can think what ifs. You just have to deal with realities, and we have to deal with where we are now. So our job is to try and get all those players back fit as quickly as possible in the best condition, and then we have to look to the future. As I said, there's still a lot to be very positive about.
Looking to the future, have the goals changed, or have they been pushed back a bit because of FFP or profit and sustainability, the financial rules that you're governed by?
I'm not really looking at it like that. I'm looking at it, can I produce the best team with the best performances with the resources that I've got? That's always been my method. Longer term targets and where we finish is their outcomes. I try and focus on how we're going to get there and how we're going to play.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Damien? Eddie, you've had to talk a lot about transfer window in the last 10 days or so. Do you as a manager have to sort of compartmentalise that and just concentrate on the football?
To a degree, yeah. I mean, of course, I take a huge role in transfers, ins and outs, of course, because the results will, in part, be dictated by how well successful you are in the market. So, a lot of effort goes into it. Sometimes a lot of it's wasted. That's just the nature of the business. But I think my fundamental job is to concentrate on the players we have here now that are playing for Newcastle and try and get the best out of them. I've always seen it that way, and then everything else comes second to that.
And in terms of the form, you said you didn't think you were your best at the weekend. Are you seeing signs that form is coming in the Man City game and so?
I think it's been there in flashes, in phases in games we've been very good, in phases of games we've not been so good. I think I'd like to think we will improve as this season goes on. But as I've said so many times, I think there's reasons why our performances have been a bit scratchy and a little bit indifferent. But of course, it's our job to try and perform as the best we can, and we're looking to do that, and we're looking to turn to our very best levels as quickly as possible.
Craig? Just a quick one on fitness, Eddie. Did Barnes and Wilson have a chance for tomorrow?
No.
In Howe's trip the after the weekend?
Yeah, I think we're okay. I'll know more today.
On the reverse fixture of the first day of the season, 5-2, Sandro's debut, Harvey Barnes creating goals. that must feel like a lifetime ago now, does it?
I think it always does, though, Craig. The first game of the season becomes a bit of a blur in a long season. Yeah, it was a good day that day, but I think, as I said, the scoreline can give one reflection. That was a tight game. It was a tough game. I thought Aston Villa were very good. We were very good. I thought it was two teams that I could see being very competitive during the season. So it's always important you don't overreact to one game.
On this window, in terms of the finance, as well as an acceptance that you are at the FFP limit for this window, looking ahead to the summer, do things change dramatically when that rolling 3-year period resets?
I understand why you asked the question, but I think it's time for us just to focus on the here and now, and we'll leave the summer until that comes around.
So I mean, promised a war chest, what you mean?
No, certainly not. I don't think there is such a thing now with financial fair play. I think the war chest days, or what analogy you want to put on it, I think every club's doing what we're doing. You can see that with the market, as I've said many times, that the market's different this year. This is a totally different January to the 12 months before. And I'm sure the summer may well be the same in a sense that it's a different way of doing transfer business now for football clubs.
Thanks, Greg. Lee Ryder?
Eddie, on transfers, if say someone does come in for Jamal Lascelles in the next sort of 24 hours, do you almost have your own deadline because you're going to need time to sign another player, and that's a key position if you did lose a centre-back? Yeah,
I think I'm not going to comment on Jamal Lascelles. He's our captain and he's a huge part of what we're doing. But I think that there is difficulties in losing players late, especially if you haven't thought that's going to happen. Yeah. And then how that leaves your squad looking. So of course, if you can't bring a replacement in for a position that you see as a key position, then that's going to leave you in difficulty. So I think there will be timelines, but I'm not necessarily directing that to what we're doing currently.
And in terms of incoming, I'm sure at the start of the window you said you want a couple of players coming in, but has your kind of ambition changed as the window's gone on and you've discovered new things about FFP and stuff like that?
I think we try and prepare and plan for windows. I think I'm always a step slightly removed from the financial dealings of the club, in a sense that, of course, I will be informed and we will communicate, but I'm not sort of there over a spreadsheet looking at numbers. I'm coaching the team, so I'm a step removed from it. But no, I don't think anything's come as a great surprise. I think as we go on, I understand more about financial fair play as the weeks go by, but I think that's the same for everybody in the room.
Yeah, and just on obviously this shock and kick-off time, 8:15 for the fans. I thought on Saturday the fans seemed to be almost defiant to the decision to kick off at that time. Does every little chant that they direct towards the team, positive of course, does that count for you guys when you're on the pitch and in the dugout?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm not sort of listening to every word, but I'm probably like everyone in the stadium. You're sort of reacting to the feeling, yeah, and the intention of the supporters. And as I said, listening on Saturday, I could hear that there was a really good feeling about the game, the competition. A lot of encouragement towards the team. I could feel that on the pitch, and that made a big difference, trust me, to how the players performed. And I think them understanding the importance of the game.
Chris and Luke. Morning, Eddie. You suggested earlier that you don't really envisage you being able to sign someone unless someone goes, but beyond Kieran Trippier, have you actually received any official approaches for any of your players?
I don't believe so, no.
And in terms of, you also said earlier that you think there's so much more to play for the rest of the season. I mean, the perception of at least some supporters is that if you don't sign anyone, that it is almost right, well, this season is what it is, and then we'll focus on next season. What is your sort of message to them on that, in terms of you saying that there is still so much more to play? Well,
I believe in the group that we have, and I believe in everything that we're trying to do. So nothing's ever over. We will keep going. We will give everything to achieve the best league position that we can, to progress as far as we can in the FA Cup. That will never change right until the last kick of the season.
Okay. Luke Evans?
It's a bit repetitive, some of these questions from me mainly, but can you just clarify the Callum Wilson situation? Kieran Trippier has come out and said, I didn't have my head turned, or I've always been committed to Newcastle. Have you had a similar conversation with Callum Wilson? There's been so much noise around here.
I wasn't aware of that, to be honest, with Callum Wilson. Yes, I have. Callum's 100% committed, just like Kieran is. So that's why I'm surprised by the noise with Callum, really. I don't really understand it. He's currently injured. We have, as I said, on Friday, I think, we have one fit striker. He's our second fit striker. We're desperate to get him back. So I think, from his perspective and our perspective, there's nothing in this.
I also asked you on Friday that did fans have to be sort of braced, as it were, for no new arrivals. Have those chances of no new arrivals increased, bearing in mind we're now 4 days away from the deadline?
Well, I think no new arrivals increases with every hour that passes because the deadline looms. So probably a yes.
And just to clarify, there's no approach to Jacob Ramsey?
No.
Okay, Jordan? Just going back to Craig's question, you mentioned about Callum Wilson. Is it a setback at all? Because I think you mentioned previously he could be back for Villa.
Yeah, no setback, no. We hoped that he'd be back. I think he was given a 4-week timeline, which would have coincided, well, 4 to 5 week timeline could have coincided with this game, but I think it's going to be more than 5 weeks than the 4.
Yeah, and on Friday you mentioned that the reports of Callum Wilson being offered to other clubs didn't make sense just because it would leave you one fit striker. In many ways, the same situation applied to Miguel Aaron if you were to sell him.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
No problem.
Dominic?
There was talk about a month ago potentially looking at goalkeepers this month, but has Martin Dubravka potentially silenced that talk with his performances since the turn of the year?
Yeah, I think Martin's done very well. I think you look back at the Fulham game, he made a key save for us. It was a really big moment in the game. It was a really good reach from him. I thought he distributed the ball well, as he always does. So yeah, he's a really experienced goalkeeper. He's a really good role model, teammate, trains really well. So I'm delighted with how he's responded to the challenge set in front of him, because he hadn't played for a while, so it was always going to be difficult to find your best rhythm straight away, but I think he's improving week on week.
And with Nick Pope, how far away is he, and would he come straight back into the team?
No, Nick's still got some distance to go. I think he was given, if my memory's right, about a 4-month return. I think he's on track for that, but and as for the team selection, look, we'll have to wait and see how Nick looks when he returns to training.
And you spoke about Miguel Aaron. Would you expect him to train today, see him ahead of the Villa game?
I hope so, unless you know different to me.
Oscar, Kieran and Martin.
Eddie spoke earlier about how you aren't that far off your teams ahead of you. Is the top 4 still a target? Is that out of reach?
I think I'll never say no to any target that's still achievable. But I think for us, we just have to take small steps. We have to try and win games on a regular basis and not worry about the top 4. Let's try and beat Aston Villa. Let's try and win our next game. That I think that's the focus. And then if we are able to do that and we build momentum, then who knows?
Okay. Kieran?
I can ask about your experience with FFP. I mean, I suppose it gives you discipline here in a way to keep within the limits. But have you found it's been a disadvantage when you want to be an upwardly mobile club?
I think it's a disadvantage if you're wanting to grow really quickly, as we are. I think it's a disadvantage for most clubs, to be honest, in a sense that everyone's wanting to grow. Most owners now, I think, have the capabilities to invest in their team. I think there's stringent checks in place now for owners who take over football clubs to make sure they have the capabilities to run the football club properly. So, yes, but it's been put in place. It's there. Everyone knows about it. So we just have to get on with it and make the best of the situation as it is. Whether it should be there in the first place, that's for someone else to decide. That's not for me to comment on. But it's certainly impacting our last few transfer windows for sure. Well, I think he's helped transform the Premier League without a shadow of a doubt. I think he's been incredible for his football club. I think he's moved football on and how it's played. He's got a very unique style. I really like their style of play. I've always admired how they're up and at them. Every opposition, they're in your face. They're very difficult to play against, very difficult to stop and control. So I like their uniqueness. They're very different to, say, a Manchester City and other teams. They sort of stand on their own in terms of their identity, and he's created that with his staff. And yeah, full credit to him. I think the Premier League will miss him.
Martin?
Hi, Eddie. Do you feel a bit weak in the midfield area at the minute? Lewis, obviously 17, then you got Bruno and Sean, and after that, like Joe Layton and obviously Sandro aren't available. Is that an area you would like to strengthen at some point?
Yeah, I wouldn't say weak in midfield. I'd say lacking in numbers.
Sorry.
Yeah, lacking in numbers. I think that's clear. It's putting a high demand on Louis, which I don't really want to be in a position where I have to pick him every week. And you know, with his age, I've got to be careful with how much load we expose him to. That's always in the back of my mind. We have some very good players in there. I think Louis done brilliantly. Sean, I thought, had his best game in a long time against Fulham, so I was really pleased with his performance. And Bruno's Bruno. So I think we have the quality in there, maybe not the depth.
In light of those numbers, then when you see Bruno linked with other teams, is that something you just couldn't contemplate losing in this window?
Yeah, I'm not aware of all these players getting linked, so you're telling me. We've got to be careful.
There's not many left.
How many? I know exactly. But yeah, Bruno's, of course, he's the heartbeat of our midfield, and look, he's on 9 bookings as well. That's an added dilemma for us.